constant intense fighting. That is, if you remember, from that moment on, the daily average losses amount to about 1,500 people per day according to our data. I will tell you that this figure is very close to reality. Just knowing how it is formed by understanding the underlying principles and mechanisms, it is really very close to reality. And considering all the contributing factors, so that is the type of combat operations. The only one that had external success, because it is precisely external success, like acquiring a small settlement, a couple of square kilometers, maybe 70 square kilometers per week. But at this rate, it will take them 3 more years to take the Donetsk region, you understand. And at this rate, they would need to sacrifice 800,000 soldiers for that very Donetsk region. Therefore, indeed, to say that sacrificing 800,000 soldiers to take an agglomeration consisting of 1, 2, 3, 4 cities, well, it's kind of, well, indeed, to call it a victory would be very difficult. So he is in a positional deadlock in this case. However, this does not mean that he indeed has no way out.
He does have a way out.
If he is not given the opportunity to exit the war, then he has the option to turn Russia into North Korea and switch to a war communism model. Anyone who says he definitely won't succeed is deceiving either themselves or everyone else. Because Putin definitely has the tools to turn on the mechanisms of war communism, like for the motherland, for Stalin, everyone in line, all the factories are churning out shells and cartridges while there, and so on and so forth. And this very war will give him the opportunity to apply this power, as if to just implement it. But in this case, indeed, he will literally have several million people under arms. In this case, when the war actually stalls and the bayonet is stuck in the ground, it will immediately lead to February 1917. That is to say, if you corner this rat, he will be forced to resort to total mobilization. In order to forcibly mobilize, everything needs to be restored like in North Korea, in the full sense of the word, both economically and politically. Does he have such an opportunity?
Yes, he does.
But this might potentially lead to him extending his life by exactly 2, at most 3 years. Because when this forcibly gathered people finally decide to stick the bayonet in the ground, and they eventually, while they are young, freshly mobilized, with eyes wide open, they are driven, scared by Akhmachai, that's all. But in 3 years, they will become fighters with 3 years of combat experience. They won't be intimidated by Akhmachai anymore. And then they might form soldiers' committees, and the whole picture of 1917 will emerge. In this case, it would be a complete disaster for Putin, and therefore, at the very least, it makes no sense for him to transition to this. It makes sense to establish some format for a ceasefire and a lasting way out of the war. But he has very specific conditions. He needs to exit the war in such a way that he can fully and decisively declare to his subjects a great victory achieved under his great leadership. Not just to declare it, but indeed to convince at least more than half of them. Therefore, he cannot exit the war with a beaten face. He needs to exit with his tail held high and with banners. And this is exactly what Trump provides him by publicly saying that he is a good guy, that he had a good conversation with him, and that he has been waiting for his G7. Like G8 is needed and so on. In other words, he is dangling a carrot in front of this rat cornered in a trap, showing him how to get out of that corner with this carrot. And if we don't let him out of this corner, what will we get next? An approximately 5 million strong Russian army?
Or even 10 million.
And excuse me, who will hold it back? Ukraine will collapse immediately because we are barely holding on as it is now. And if we multiply this biomass and resources, Ukraine will no longer withstand it, because the internal corruption of the government has led to the point where we no longer have the ability to effectively and efficiently manage and control. To mobilize in order to the next level, everyone can see what's happening with the basic situation. Chances to increase the number of troops by 500,000. We don't have a single chance, literally. That is to hold on. If nothing was happening with them and nothing was happening with us, then yes, we could continue fighting like this for a long time. But things are happening with them. Putin will be forced, if the war goes beyond June, to move towards mobilization. In order to do that, he will be forced to turn Russia into North Korea. And when it becomes North Korea, he can mobilize not just 100,000 or 500,000, but maybe even 5 million. And having, as it were, once this has happened, he needs to keep fighting and fighting, and preferably successfully. Further, I think strength will appear for the Baltics and for Poland. I think he will only avoid Scandinavia. There, the theater of military operations is complex, and more resilient fighters will stand in defense.